What's up, everybody? This is Zach with the Hunt School. As promised, I'm going to tell you guys the most recent bear story I had from my backpacking fishing trip from last week. Have a little bit of bear safety discussions in here too. I guess it's a good topic. I'm not being the best example of driving safety, making a video while I'm driving. But anyways, last week went backpacking with my old friend Jim Tilley, who him and I guided fishing together in Alaska for a few years, and we got together to go fishing in the San Carlos Apache Reservation in an area that's known for having pretty high densities of black bears, especially for Arizona. And so we took all the typical precautions in camp, and we're extra good about making sure that we didn't leave any food or things that might smell like an attractant to a bear in our camp or in our tent or sleeping bag. And so we would hang up all of our food and our backpacks up in a ponderosa tree about 15 feet off the ground, which turns out was a good idea. We actually had a bear come in, I'm not sure when, whether it was at night or during the day while we were fishing, but there were fresh claw marks going up that ponderosa, which I'll post a photo of. Anyways, on the second day of our trip, we headed down river and we're fishing, having a great time, catching pretty good numbers of bass. And I got to a big deep hole that I saw some really good sized fish in there, and so I was pretty intent on trying to catch those big bass. My friend Jim went down river a little bit farther to keep fishing, and while he was down there, he saw a small black bear heading upriver in my direction. So he decided he'd walk back up around the bend and just let me know that there was a bear coming upriver, more so just to let me know that I might get to see a bear, not really thinking that it was any kind of a danger or worry. Well, when he got there to me, there was a bear already on the steep, rocky, nearly a cliff, but steep, rocky hill slope that came right down to the water's edge where I was standing. And so as soon as he sees me, he yells to me, "Zach, there's a bear right over your left shoulder." And I look over, think right over my left shoulder. He says, "It's right on top of you, 30 feet. And I had just caught a fish. I have a bass in my hand that I'm trying to pull the hook out of. And I've got my little needle nose pliers, and I'm getting the hook out of this fish. And so I'm looking around, and I don't see this bear anywhere. So I start to wonder if maybe he's saying left when he means right, or getting excited and maybe it's really across the river. So I'm looking all over and I don't see a bear anywhere. And I say back to him, "Jim, I don't see anything. Where is it?" And he says, "It's right on top of you. You start making noise." So up in Alaska, whenever you're in an area where you either see a bear really close or you're going through thick, dense vegetation where there could be a bear close, and you don't want to ever walk up on a bear and spook it. And sometimes if they have their head down feeding on something, they'll be pretty intent on doing that. You can accidentally walk right up on them and meet face to face, which is definitely what you don't want to do. So typically we'll just yell, hey bear," over and over, and make noise just so that you don't spook a bear. So I started to do that, say "hey bear" over and over. And when I did that, I saw the bear's head pop up over a rock about 30 feet away, right over my left shoulder, and look right at me. And at that point, I knew where it was, so I faced it and I started to wave my arms and yell at the bear. And it kind of looked intent and stood up and took a step towards me. And I was thinking to myself, from my time in Alaska, usually if you're on a river and a bear's close or coming at you, it's not necessarily that he is trying to hurt you directly, but if you have a fish on the line or he smells a dead salmon in the river, he may be trying to push you off of that, and he wants to come to that area to be able to feed and get that fish because they know that's a food source. So in my mind, from my experiences, I'm thinking, I've got this fish in my hand right now, he wants the fish. So if I throw it back in the water, that fish is going to make a splash on the water and that bear's going to go to it, and that puts me right between the bear and the fish, and I don't want the bear to come any closer. So I took this smallmouth bass and I threw it as hard as I could over top of the bear's head up the hill slope, thinking that he would go away from me and head up the hill slope after the fish. So I just hucked this poor live smallmouth bass right over top of the bear's head, and it doesn't even look at it. And so I start yelling again, going, yeah, get out of here. And this bear turns and he comes running straight at me. And I mean, it was almost like as if I had called him like a dog, going like, come here boy, come here boy. This bear comes running right at me. So I drop my fishing rod. I don't have my gun. My gun's back at camp, which not like I would have been able to pull it out and draw it fast enough in that situation anyways. So I'm looking around and I'm right on the river's edge, and there's no loose rocks that I can see except for kind of down in this little crevice that's about a foot lower than my feet, and I think maybe even lower than the river's edge. I see two rocks that might be loose, and one of them's like the size of a cantaloupe or bigger, and the other one's a little smaller, maybe like a grapefruit sized rock. So I jump down there as fast as I can and grab the smaller of the two rocks, and it's kind of stuck, but I pried on it pretty hard when I grabbed it, and it came out of the ground. And I stood back up, and that bear was maybe 10 to 15 feet from me, coming at me. And I wound up and threw that rock as hard as I could at the bear and hit it right in the shoulder, and it made a loud thud. And as soon as I hit that bear with the rock, it turned and took off and ran up the steep hill slope. And it all happened really fast, but it was kind of a scary experience for, you know, especially after all the other ones I'd had. I hadn't had a bear get quite that close to me before coming at me. I've been charged by grizzlies before and had to do some similar things. But anyways, thinking back on it, I think that bear was heading up river, and I happened to be in the way, and because of that steep hill slope, it didn't want to go up and around, and I was kind of in its escape route, especially that it knew my friend was downriver in the other direction, and it was basically thinking that, you know, I'm a bear and I'm bigger and I'm gonna go that direction upriver, and so you need to get out of the way. And I didn't really have anywhere to go other than jumping in the river. So yeah, but that's a good point to talk about, is that aside from, you know, bear safety in camp and making sure you're controlling the scents and odors and food that you have so that you don't have to have a close encounter with a bear. If you're in bear country and you see one, your posture and your attitude and what you do is pretty important. So waving your arms, making yourself big, maybe even taking a step or two towards the bear, yelling, telling it to go away, is the right thing to do. Most animals respond to like body posture and the perceived threat that might be there. So it's definitely not a good idea to run away. You need to make yourself big, act confident even if you're not. And then at last resort, I mean, I'm not one that throws rocks at animals just cause, but trying to defend yourself before you come in physical contact with it is something that you need to do. And I've actually had to do that on 2 occasions, once on a grizzly bear and once just now in this story. Actually have to pick up a rock off the ground. Now, yeah, I'm a proponent of bear spray. I've used it. It works great, but it's similar to a gun in that you better have that ready and practiced, know how it works, and it better be within hand's reach to use, because those instances, a bear can go from 30 feet to 10 feet in no time at all. And if you have to pull that out of a bag or a pack or a holster and pull the pin and you don't quite know how to do it, it's not going to do you any good. So I've had to resort on 2 occasions to just reaching down and grabbing a rock and throwing it, either if it's too far at the feet of the bear, or if it's close like this one, I knew that it was close enough I was going to be able to hit it, and so that's what I did, and it ended up making the bear run away. So just some things to think about, especially if you're going anywhere where there's bears. So hope you enjoyed the story, and leave me any comments if you have questions or want to discuss that topic further. So thanks, have a good one, get outdoors, have fun.